What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast. We sort the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on? So we are the dynamic duo for the rest of this week, so definitely continue to check us out. So Monday, Tuesday, our topics, Wednesday, discussion, Thursdays, Ask a CISSP, and then Fridays, everything else, movies, books, games, all that good stuff. But without further ado, I'll give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this article comes from informationsecurity.buzz.com, written by Zoe Lindsay. And the title of this one is Strengthening Security Posture Through People-First Engagement, right? So if that sounds kind of weird, what this is a long way of saying we need to get people better at handling what's going on in organizations when it comes to cybersecurity, right? That's what it comes down to, right? Because the gist of this discussion is going to be how you have these attackers out here that are targeting people to get in. So like I mentioned it on Monday's episode, right? So if you didn't see it, go back and watch Monday. Kind of did a little bit of foreshadowing to this that was coming up, right? So what ended up happening was Verizon released their Verizon Business's 2024 Data Breach Investigation Report. And in it revealed that 68% of breaches included a non-malicious human element, such as people falling for phishing schemes, mishandling sensitive information, or getting duped by a social engineering attempt, right? So this has always been the case. Like you can go back years, right? And I don't know if you guys know about Kevin Mitnick. He's passed on now, but like he was a very prodigious hacker that talked about this and actually wrote a book when it came to this. And social engineering was the way he did a lot of his infiltration, right? Like he could show up to places. Like if you just look like you belong when you go somewhere, like that's how you do it. You show up in a maintenance uniform, nobody pays attention to the maintenance guy, right? You show up in a janitorial uniform, nobody's paying attention to them. They just assume they need to be there, right? But then that's how you get into places where you shouldn't necessarily be. And in this instance, they're talking about more along the lines of like phishing and things of that nature, right? So it's a human element of it where people need to be better educated. And here's the thing. I don't even want to come out and say they're not educated to this, right? Like I think a lot of people, more people than we want to give credit for, have had the education. It's a matter of implementation. Right. So like they get the education and more than likely they're not paying attention to it. Right. So like I see it sometimes. I like to liven up. So this is kind of what I do. Right. Like in my job, I do training for folks that are going to get onto our networks. Right. So the networks that we manage, you have to have training before you do that. Right. Look out for these things. We talk about insider threat. We go through all these things, cyber awareness, blah, 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 blah. And there are times where I see people where they're just like, man, I want to be somewhere else. And I realize it's not the best material, but I try to liven it up as best as I can. You know, I'm kind of like what you see on the show is kind of who I am, right? Like I like to throw a little joke in there every once in a while, make sure people are engaging. Every once in a while, you know, I have them answer something like, where did I say that was? You know what I mean? Get them to respond back, right? So, but I think more people than we like to give credit for receiving the education is their implementation of it. So 68%, like when you see that number, you're just like, wow, that is a lot of people, right? Like, so that's like one out of every 6.6. I realize you can't do 0.6 of a person, right? So like if you round it down, one out of every 6 people, right? That's how they're getting it. Those are the non-malicious human element that they're talking about, right? And these are 1 out of 6 people are falling victim to social engineering attack or making an error that they know better than to do, right? So again, this is me going under the assumption that everybody gets some type of cyber awareness training before they log onto a network or using telecommunication devices, things of that nature. I know in the DoD they do it, right? Like whether or not people are reading all those paragraphs that they're signing or they're just putting their signature on the form, that's a different story altogether, right? But they are receiving the training. So this is a little disheartening, man. Like it sucks to see, but it wasn't necessarily surprising to see. You know what I mean? And again, this is from my own experience of seeing how people take in training and things of that nature. But this report also goes into some other things, right? So it has some other figures on there, some other takeaways, I guess you could say, where it says 14% of breaches involve the exploitation of vulnerabilities as an initial access step, almost triple the amount from last year's report, right? So 14% this year was a triplicate of breaching with exploitation of vulnerabilities, like in a system or a network, as the initial access step. So even that's going up. So people are getting lax in how they're securing their devices, right? And so this one was kind of interesting to me because I said it before, where crime only pays for a little bit. Well, it pays pretty good, right? So they said 62% of financially motivated incidents involve ransomware or extortion, with a median loss of $46,000 per breach. So it pays pretty good, right? Because there's several breaches every day. I'm sure of it, right? So 46,000 per breach. That's a lot of loss. That's a lot of loss to a company, and whether or not that's because they're paying out a ransomware amount or whatever situation may be, loss of productivity, loss of access to their system, like if you're in sales or retail or something like that, and you just don't have the ability to do something, like that's a lot of money to be lost, right? So, and then they said they have in here 15% of breaches involve the third party or suppliers, such as software supply chains, which we talked about supply chains lately on here, right? It's starting to be on the come up, right? But software supply chains hosting partner infrastructures or data custodians. So again, it's an interesting report, right? Like when you look at stuff that's in there, you're like, man, this is wild out here. But it's not that surprising when you're in the know and you deal with this a lot more. You're like, yeah, I can kind of see that, right? Whether it be through your experiences or whatever they may be. Like this is one of those discussions where I wish we had everybody, because we all have the different experiences, to be like, yeah, my experience has been this, my experience has been this, you know what I mean? Like, not that I'm poo-pooing the dynamic duo, I just want more of the Justice League to be around, like, so,
Analogy.
yeah, but yeah, man, like this was an interesting read, and that data breach investigation report from Verizon was it's worth a look if you guys get the chance. But what's your thoughts on this?
I think you hit the nail right on the head, as always, right? I think with our similar background, we're kind of spoiled in that the Department of Defense is actually paying people to do these things, right? Like you have a configuration management team, you have patch management, you have your vulnerability assessment, you have your information assurance department. Like you have a lot of people who are fulfilling these requirements that gives you that defense in depth. And just because we always feel as though it's not state of the art, right? We're like, we're always behind, we're always this. But then you get out here in the Wild Wild West, you're like, yo, I kind of miss, because the Department of Defense isn't necessarily out there to make money, but when you go outside to the private sector, like that is what they're incentivized to make money. So if they can cut a corner and not hire a person, and still for whatever reason believe that they're safe, they will do so. And you just don't see as many robust organizations until you get to the billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies. Then they have very robust departments. But yeah, your mom and pops and your small businesses, they have like their CEO is also their CTO, is also their CIO. They don't have a CISO, right?
They work the register.
Yeah, they're doing all the things, yeah. So they just don't necessarily have the time to sit there and get all of their ducks in a row, which sucks. And they're not incentivized to do so because they're trying to grow the business. So like I can't jump on a CISO right now. They cost too much. So I'm gonna do what I find on the internet to be the best practice, right? Which at least they did something, but typically it's not very robust, right? They don't have information security policy. They don't have incident response. They don't have business continuity in case things go wrong, and then they get destroyed when it comes time to actually fulfill an audit, right? They do an assessment. They're just like, I don't have anything. It's overwhelming.
So, you gotta believe that anybody. So like you're saying, right? They go find the quickest, easiest solution they could just find online, right? Anyone who has hate in their heart and has some nefarious tendencies and wants to get at you, all that stuff that you can find online that easily, they've already got something for that. They've already counteracted that in some way, or have a way to go around it because it's cheap and accessible, and it was easy for them to see. Like that's easy for them to combat, right? You know what I mean? Like that's been out there, and that stuff is usually stuff that's been out there for years, and it may even be obsolete. You know what I mean? Let me not say obsolete. It may not be as secure, right? It may not be as secure as it should be for what your purposes are.
Absolutely. And then it's the enforcement, right? Like let's say they did find, because there's a really good NIST guide, right? Like if you type in information security or cybersecurity policy NIST. I forget what I typed in, but it brought me directly to the NIST website, which always has a ton of resources and tools. But it was a PDF that spawns Word docs, so it gives you a template of an information security policy. It gives you a template of all these things that they put out there for people who cannot afford necessarily to hire somebody to build this stuff for them, right? And then it's a matter of tailoring it. So that again, that costs them time. They have to go there and sit and tailor it, as opposed to, hiring somebody like one of us to go in there and say, okay, this is what you need. You don't need these other 800 documents. You just need these 10. It's the top 10 you need, and let's tailor this to your specific organization. What frameworks do you fall under, right? Like, what kind of company are we? X, Y, and Z. But then it's still a matter of hiring a person to do that, right? Because they don't have time. Like an entrepreneur in their first 5 years, they're just running 100 miles an hour, just running, trying to get stuff done. And their employees just like, well, they don't necessarily know any better if they haven't been in a large organization. So they're like, I never signed a set up use policy. I don't have any restrictions on the way I access things. They may have gotten some training, but they didn't really pay attention. They're not getting cyber awareness challenges hit or phishing attempts thrown at them. Things that you have to pay for, right? You have to pay for these services to then enact these things. So they see a link, they click it, boom, there's a problem, and it brings everything to a screeching halt. And that's just so unfortunate. You could reach out to CISA has. You have the ability to reach out to them, and they can help you out for free. But then it's a matter of having the time in your schedule to sit down and talk to them to get the materials, and again, tailor them to your needs. So it's just not fair, so to speak, and it's being taken advantage of. Like 68% did surprise me, and we talk about this every day. I was like, dang, way over half. I didn't know it was going to be high.
So Mitnick, I think when he wrote his book, I think he referenced it was like 73 or 75%. Like social engineering, you know what I mean? So like the number, it's lower than what I have seen in the past, but it's like, yeah, that's kind of how it happens, right? Like we've done the stories. We show it. Someone opened up an email. Someone thought an invoice was, hey, yeah, this is an invoice for this. I'll send the money out. End up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars when they send an invoice to somebody that it shouldn't have gone to. I mean, it's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, it's wild. And to include, so we were talking about business in this particular case, but you have to think about people personally, like receiving SMS emails or being taken advantage of. Like we talked about the offline, we talked about the storm just rocked Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama. Like they all got rocked, and now you're getting scams, right? Like there's people reaching out to you saying like, oh, we are your insurance company and we want to come check out your roof and give us some of your PII to confirm it's you. Right, give me your social. Make sure you're the right person. I'm like, no, give me your social. Make sure you're the right person.
Or send us this money before we come out. Like it's going to cost you $150 before we just come out and look. Right? We've been hired on through State Farm or whatever it may be. Right? And I'll tell you something, man. When you see some of these emails that may slip through your spam filter, they're getting very good at imitating like these legitimate companies, man. There's stuff to pay attention to that you're just like, wow. Like you guys are getting good. I don't want to chef's kiss you, but I'm like, man, you put some effort into this one, right?
Right. You over here cooking. Like this looks like Wells Fargo. It really is sad. Like people are just always trying to take advantage. They've been doing this, right? Telemarketers have always existed. Try to get your stuff. I'm not saying all telemarketing is bad, but like that is a way of networking people, right? Social networking people. And it's not just older people; it's the full gamut. They're getting. I'd say the only safe generation is the younger generation because Roblox is teaching them basic information security and cyber awareness, right? Through memes and things of that nature. Like they're getting at the kids. The kids are getting smarter, but their parents not so much. And again, I think we were spoiled by being a part of the Department of Defense because again, they're not there to make money. They're there to spend money, basically, to keep us safe. So it flips the paradigm on its head, and they have very robust tools and people and processes because of it. But it just doesn't trickle out to the outside, which keeps me employed. I give you that. But I think that also bleeds into, and then this is kind of, I think it's a relevant topic, but it may be kind of an offshoot, right? That we simply just don't train people appropriately. Like we train them for training's sake, right? Like you bring in humor, you bring in all that good stuff. You're trying to challenge people and develop them in their minds and what have you. But a lot of training is just to check the box. And I think that also does a disservice because you're just trying to meet a metric for an assessment. You're like, okay, we're going to get assessed. We have to make sure we have whatever before or whomever. And I say it's bad training. It's good training. Like all training is good training if it's applied. But people are just clicking through these cyber challenges to get the certificate to meet the objective of when we get audited, all our people have been trained this year. And that just doesn't meet muster, right? Like you're not building a culture of security-minded people. You're just checking a box, and that in itself causes then the breach. And it's like, why did you click on that? Like you should know better. Like, but you've been trained to just click through things. Like that's your MO now, just to click through things.
You see it in everything. Like they're not just seeing it at work; they're seeing it at home too, right? Like, yeah, just click the box, click the EULA. Like, yeah, I agree. Whatever. 31 paragraphs that would take me 30 minutes to read. I'm not reading it, so here it is. I agree. Check the agree. Keep it moving. Now I can download whatever it is I need to download and give them access to things that I'm not reading. They can have access to my camera, my contacts, all this stuff. Right? Right. You're not paying attention. You just want to use whatever it is you want to use.
You just want to get to the end of whatever it is. Like I downloaded that app the other day. It was a legitimate app, but it wanted access to like my calculator. I was like, no, like why? Like that just seems for no reason, right? You need access to my contacts and yada yada yada. And I know a lot of that's to build its own list of people to then reach out to and then contact. But what if you are nefarious? Like all good apps aren't good. Supply chain attacks also attack the good apps, and now you have malicious whatever on your phone and what have you. But
or it's sold off to somebody else that has different intentions, right? Like it may be a small company when they start out, but then when they make it big, right? Oh, so-and-so wants to buy me? Sure, I'll sell it, So while you sipping pina coladas next to you down on your vacation spots, you know what I mean? Like the company they sold it to is like, yep, now we need all this data to reach out to all these people and do all these things, right?
Yeah, best believe. So if one of these $1 trillion companies reach out to me, like we want the other side of the firewall and all of your mailing lists, like yes, you can have it. Man, listen, I don't know. I don't know how to fix this specific one without just building somehow care and trust into the process. Like it talks about your why, right? We talk about that a lot in the military as well. Like explain the why. You want to know like why, and that builds in that necessity to protect, that necessity to be part of this culture and to do the right thing. A lot of people don't have time for that why, so just do this. Just check this box. Let's get this over with. Just from turn around and click a link and set themselves up. So I don't know, man. Yeah, I do wish the other two were here as well, because then you would get Daniel's perspective, because I know he comes with a ISO-ism background as well, like yourself, and then me and Daniel have gone the consulting route, but or I'm sorry, not me and Chris have gone the consulting route, but both of us were also, in the Department of Defense, so we also have that shared experience. But it's wild out here, Shannon. Stay part of the Department of Air Force. You'll be very disappointed when you get out here. You make a lot, but then you also get you just keep seeing the same. Unfortunately, the same mistakes, because you're like, man, listen, you should have this, and they're like, well, we ain't got that money. Just get us ready for this NIST or this ISO or what have you. You're like, well, I'm gonna get you there, but I also want to build in a culture of security.
I've been retired for enough years now where like it doesn't upset me like it used to when I first got out. Like as a contractor, right? Like I'm just here to recommend, right? Like yes, you told me you have a requirement for me to perform these functions. I will do those functions, but my recommendation to you to not fall prey to this or to do this or to do this or to go this route, it's only a recommendation. Like I've come to accept that, right? So like because they don't listen all the time. Believe that they don't listen all the time, right? They're like, now we don't want to do that. We got to get this up and running quick, fast, mission failure. You hear all the buzzwords, you know what I mean? It's just like, okay, like I'm going to document that I told you, like it's going to be in an email. So I just want you to put
I'm covered.
You're not going to hand me a slip that's pink. That's not happening.
Right. But yeah, it's wild out here. But hopefully people are paying more attention. I say that and then it's showing the opposite. These numbers are showing the opposite. People are not paying attention. But we'll build more robust tools and our defenses will go up. Oh, that was the offshoot I want to talk about. And then I'll land this plane. We have to get out of our head that it takes 1,000,000 degrees and certifications and decades of experience to be in our field. Like I know it's not recommended by a lot of people. Some people call it gatekeeping. Some other people are just saying like we need people relevant experience. The bad guys don't have that. The bad guys don't have relevant experience. They don't have degrees. They don't have certifications. So I'm being hypocritical because I have all those things, but I did those things so I could check the boxes to get in the field. And then when I'm over here, I'm seeing like the bad guys don't like we ask them for their shirts. Like before you breach us, gotta make sure you have a CISP. Like that's not happening. Like it doesn't make sense.
Are you really a certified ethical hacker? No, you're about to do
Right.
some unethical things. So CEH ain't for you, right?
They just have passion and the will to do such, and we need to start focusing on getting people in the field that have passion and will as well. And then you can work up to those certain things of that nature. It's getting on my nerves that you have to have these things to break in to the field when the people who are breaking in to your company do not have these things. So it's very backwards in my opinion. But I digress. I'm not a hiring manager, so I can't. I have no influence in the market, right? So to speak. But yeah, continue to hit us up. Monday, Tuesday, our topics. Wednesday, discussion. Thursdays, Ask CISSP. Fridays, everything else. So movies, books, games, all that good stuff. Hit up all the websites that go by our name. The other side of the firewall, the other side of the FW, or you go to ramcyber.io, or you can hit me up. I'm at Security Guy. The transcript's going to kill me on this one. Security Guy, RY Security Guy. You can find me on LinkedIn and pretty much all the other socials, or you can email me at rwilliams@ramcyber.io. Stay safe. Stay secure.